Father Pieper has asked that the topic today for today's novena be the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This is the feast we usually celebrate on May 31st. So what I'd like to do is share with you just a few thoughts about what this incident in Mary's life means to me. A woman tells this story. She says that when she was expecting her second baby, her four-year-old girl, Hannah, loved to talk to the baby by putting her mouth close to her mommy's tummy. And once she walked up to her mother, put her mouth close to her tummy and said, "Hey, baby, there's something I want to tell you. Mommy and Daddy are cleaning out a room for you. But there's something I need to tell you. It's not as big as my room. My room's bigger than yours. And my room is right next to Mommy and Daddy's room, and yours is not." You know, folks, I get the idea that the desire to be number one, to enjoy the best of everything, starts very early in life. And you know what? It continues as we grow older. Let me tell you that our Blessed Mother had no desire to be number one, as it were. She was concerned first and foremost, not with herself, but with others. And in this case, her cousin Elizabeth, she was the one she was concerned about. You know, even though Mary herself was pregnant, she was concerned about her pregnant cousin. And so she went and took a long visit, a difficult trip in order to visit her, to take care of her. Now, I think that Mary has a lesson for us today. Mary is teaching us to be mindful of the needs of others, to reach out to help them in any way that we can. So this morning, I'd like to share with you just a few thoughts about how we can imitate Mary by helping others. An airline flight attendant tells this story. He said that one night, an elderly lady told him that this was going to be her first airplane flight. Now, it was hardly a night for a first flight because there was rain, lightning, thunder. And as the plane taxied to the end of the runway, the old lady looked terrified. So the attendant said that, breaking a very strict rule, he sat next to her, holding her cold hand in his. And she squeezed hard at his hand, and she held on. And after they were safely in the air, he got up and started to do what he had to do with the airplane. But she stopped him and she says, "Oh, by the way, Sonny, if you're afraid when we go to land, you just come back here and I'll hold your hand again." You know what I thought? Hey, folks, that is our role in life, to hold someone's hand, to calm them down, to allay their fears, to comfort them. And I think that when Mary visited Elizabeth, she went there to hold her hand, to allay her fears, the fears that she might have had at the impending birth of a baby. And now we too can imitate Mary by holding the hands of others, holding the hand of those who are frightened and worried and anxious. Mary wants us to hold the hand of those who are in the hospitals. She wants us to hold the hand of those who are in funeral homes, bidding farewell to loved ones. And I might add, and very importantly, Mary wants us to hold the hand, especially, of the members of our family who might need a little comfort. A man tells this story. He was in the hospital as a result of a heart attack, but tests showed that he also had cancer. And now he was lying in bed, devastated, feeling down, very depressed. And his friend Jim came to visit him. And Jim didn't come to just pass the time, to smile and say, I hope you're feeling better. Jim told his friends that he and the others at the office really missed him and that they needed him. They wanted him to come back soon. And then he said something that must have been very hard for him to say. With tears in his eyes, he said, I want you to know that I really care about you. We really care about you. In fact, we love you. And later on, the man told someone, Jim told me two things that I needed to know more than anything at this time. I needed to know that I am needed, and he told me that. And I needed to know that I was loved, and he told me that. My friends, I am becoming more and more convinced that everyone needs to hear two things above all else. They need to hear that they are loved. They need to hear that they are needed. And I think that when Mary visited her cousins, she wanted Elizabeth to know that she was needed and she was loved. And may I add also that we should be able to tell the members of our family often that they are needed and they are loved. Here's a story from the life of the late General Omar Bradley. He was boarding a commercial plane for a long flight. He was wearing his business suit rather than his usual military attire. He found his assigned seat, sat down, and began to work on some very important papers, when ironically his seatmate turned out to be a private in the United States Army who was rather talkative. And the private, who did not recognize General Bradley, said to him, "Sir, we're going to be traveling together for a long time, so I think it would be nice if we got to know each other. I'm guessing that you are a banker." And Bradley, not wanting to be rude but wanting to get some work done, said, "No, I am not a banker. I am General Bradley, a 5-star general in the United States Army. I am head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C." And after a slight pause, the young soldier said, "Well, sir, that is a very important job. I sure hope you don't blow it." Hey, folks, I'm here today to tell you we too have an important job. Just as our Blessed Mother brought Jesus, who was in her womb, to her cousin Elizabeth, just as she brought Jesus down through the ages to all humanity, so too should we. Our job is to bring Jesus to others by what I call a ministry of love. Our job is to reach out to those in need. Our job is to give someone a word of encouragement, a word of comfort, a word of gratitude, a word of support. Hey, folks, yes, our job is a very important one. It is the ministry of love. Let's not blow it. My final thought is this. We know what we're speaking about today. We're talking about imitating Mary by a ministry of love. What we're really talking about, too, is the second greatest commandment, to love our neighbor as ourselves. I'd like to emphasize the motive, why we should be doing this. They tell the story of a young man who was explaining to his parents about his fiancée. he said, I fell in love with her the second time I met her. And his mother said, son, we're delighted that you're in love, but why did you fall in love the second time you met her and not the first? And the son said, well, the first time I met her, I didn't know that she was a multimillionaire. Here we are, folks. Today we are reminded that we should love our neighbor, not for reasons of personal gain, not because we expect something in return, but simply because that is what the Lord wants us to do. Simply because when we express our love for others, you know what we're doing? We are expressing our love for Jesus who dwells within them. Jesus made this perfectly clear when he identified himself with others. Remember what he said? Whatsoever you do to or for others, you do for me. That's the reason for our ministry of love. That is the reason why we should imitate our Blessed Mother. So let's continue our Mass. Let's thank Mary, our Blessed Mother, for visiting her cousin Elizabeth, and for reminding each of us here today to imitate her by participating in the ministry of love.